one of the outstanding anthropology professors at college, Valentine Daniel. Once he said, all the failed writers, if they are not successful in writing novels and short stories, they decide to go and study anthropology and become professors. But luckily, I am not a professor of anthropology. I am a professor of sociology. So I invite you to comment on. There are lots of the poets. After some time, they start writing novels in the Tamil context, in the other context. So I would like to invite you to comment on these the Tamil poets writing novels. There are lots of novels. Sukumar and Salma and all kinds of other people, they started writing novels. So what is your take on that? They are a poet, but they are writing short stories and novels.
I have to answer it as a literary critic to this question. See, the major poet who wrote good novel is Boris Pasternak.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a popular quotation of Boris Pasternak that a good poet in our time should write a novel. That's a very popular quotation. I don't know why, but I can express it like this. Poetry has no context. There is no context. Poetry has a hidden context created by all other poets. It's a cumulative context. So you take a single poetry. It's like a dialogue in a big play. The play is hidden. The play is up to the readers. The play is created by all other poets collectively. But the dialogue is in this play. It has a hidden context only. So if you are comfortable with this bigger context created by the whole culture, and you are creating your own single dialogue on it, single conversation on it, it is good for you. You can write only poem. But some poets need to create their own context for their poetry. See, Charan is writing poetry in the context of Sri Lankan struggle and the wider context of Tamil culture. But if you want to create your own context for your poetry, you have to write novel. Boris Pasternak wrote his novel to fix his poetry inside it. So I am writing novels because I want to express my spirituality inside that particular context. A novel is a bigger context created by me to express my poetry inside. So that's the thing. I don't know why Sukumaran or Salma wrote novels. Maybe this is the reason. But if you want to tell me, so you are telling me that see Jeyamohan, I am writing about a lot of poetry about Sri Lankan struggles. But there is a problem in this. So you are writing poetry about Sri Lankan struggle, which is now a story. It's not history now. It's now a narration. That narration made by inferior writers and inferior poets. And you are bigger than that. If you feel that, you have to write a complete narration of Sri Lankan struggle, then you have to fix your poetry inside it. Then you become a novelist. You have to write a novel, a big novel. Then you have to fix your poetic expressions inside that.
I think it's a good discussion. I would like to add 3 quick points. First of all, one of the reasons I asked you this question is a lot of my English publishers, or the publishers who would want to publish my work, after reading a couple of chapters of my memoirs, they insist that I should write novels or something else, a creative non-fiction, because that is easy to publish and it is good for you. I said, no, I write poetry. People translate poetry. I would like to stick to poetry. I said, it's good. You can do that, but it's this is not the era of poetry. So we always advise our writers and poets to switch to novels or short stories or what they call the creative nonfiction.
That's a commercial view only.
That is one.
I would get that.
That is one kind of an economic or other kind of a context. The other context is one of the reasons why I think you discuss about these poets writing novels. There is a kind of a narrative that we call, or we, all of us understand, it's a visual narrative. It is not simple, a kind of narrative that I go and observe, I come out with all my writing, with all these depths, very, it comes out of curiosity, it comes out of experience, it comes about our commitment, right? But one of the reasons I do not want to go into, it's my personal choice, but it is related to one of the reasons why I do not want to, at least until now, won't write short stories or novels is about the kind of poetry that we write. It is not just archival thing, the stories. I think it's a kind of a counter archives. Archives in its basic sense, it always kind of tied to the government narrative, established institutions, or what you call, the extremely powerful corporations they support. If you go to Geneva, you will see the archives of International Committee of Red Cross. It's supported by the most extremely bad NGO, corporation. And all the kind of existing archives, they do not actually represent my voice or the voice of the others oppressed people. It's all part of the established standard kind of thing. So the point is, when I say it's a counter archive or poetry as an archive, it speaks completely different thing. The way that your stories in the stories the truth speaks, that is a counter archive. That is not an established official kind of archive. So the moment we are committed to that kind of thing, as you said, neither I can never support any government. It is not from a position of anarchist, but the established government states are simply fundamentally bad.
So modern novel is like that. So first thing is, I used to write a lot about history, but I am not writing that history. I am writing parallel history. I am writing my own history, or I am writing the gaps of history only. So it is another totally different history. Somebody may say that is a historical fiction, but so if you want to write a free version of your own Sri Lankan history, you have to write. And the second thing, you write a lot of individual poetry. This poetry can stand on their own, but if you want to connect all this poetry into your own single big narration, and if you want to place the poetry one into each against another one, you can juxtapose your own poetry. You can create the contradictions in your poetry. If you want to do that, you can select a modern novel version. So modern novel is not just a story. You can write a novel without any story. You can write a novel just filled with pure poetry and pure admonitions only. You see, you have immense chances to write a novel. So modern poetry is very close to modern poetry. Modern short story is not close to modern poetry. Modern short story is more and more related to essay or something. But modern novel is very close to poetry. So that's why poets select.
No, I agree, but one quick point. Sorry,
Can I ask?
it is what makes it an important point. But I do not think that the kind of work I do in literature is confined to one particular territory or one particular kind of experience anymore, because there is another huge dimension. Because those days I thought that when the Wanambari poets wrote about Vietnam and all this kind of a thing. They had no sense of understanding, emotional, organic experience, but they came out simply as a kind of a rhetoric. But now the sense is completely different for people like us. I have lived through the experience of Palestinians, people in Rwanda and in Myanmar. So every time I go, live and start all kind of thing, there is a kind of a different dimension that emerges up. That is what I call the creative solidarity. So the creative solidarity is not just a political, economic, or social context. It comes through from the moment, every time I see a baby head blown up from Gaza, it provokes, it evokes all kinds of other kind of things. And if I write a poem, that is not just simply the poem about the old kind of thing, right? So there's a certain kind of experiences and trauma, and always returning to what you have fundamentally affected in your formative periods of writing that's come. And I still have to find a way whether I could make them into a novel. But I'm not so sure. That's all.
I think we have
Question
time
from
for one question, and then
Only one
we,
question, the
yes,
last
just
question.
one more, okay? Yeah.
What is your observation on the immigrant literature, which is getting more and more popularity in the United States and in Canada? Is there a writer that you recommend? Is there a novel that you would recommend?
I think the immigration are writing of diaspora writing.
Yeah.
It should be very, very important to Western culture, because it became more and more multi-ethnic and more democratic culture. And I think after 100 years, the entire world is going to be like that. So it's an experiment. It's a big, particularly US is a big laboratory of humanity. It's testing. We have a very particular kind of alloy. I'm very happy to see a food court in the US with all kind of food in a single store. It's a very big symbol for me. So, diaspora, to see, a writer like Ted Chiang is very, very popular in US. It's a very, very important thing, because it's a sample of future literature, how it's going to be in future. So in India, not a single Bengali writer is popular in Tamil Nadu. Some Malayali writers are very popular in Tamil Nadu, but not a Bengali writer, contemporary Bengali writer. Not a Hindi contemporary serious writer is very popular in Tamil Nadu. So we are very inclusive culture. We don't have any other kind of reading in Tamil Nadu. So diaspora writing getting very popular in America is a very, very, very important thing. And other side of that is, some writers are very popular in the US. For example, this Jhumpa Lahiri. Jhumpa Lahiri is very popular in US, and she is very important in US culture. Not to me. To me, I respect a writer because he is talking towards the humanity. I am reading Tolstoy not to understand about Russian literature, not to understand about Tolstoy. I read Tolstoy to understand about myself. That's why Gabriel Garcia Marquez or Losa are very important to me. Not Jhumpa Lahiri or this Simonda Adichie. They write about their own life. It is important for an American citizen to understand their other cultures. I am listening a world writer, the world writer, for great ideals, for great dreams and great ideas. So That's why I read, I consider some American writers are great writers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We have a few minutes before we have to wrap up in this place, but I'm going to urge you, if you want to get copies of the book, please do so. And Jeyamohan is here to sign them really quickly for you. I'm going to thank Mr. Muthulingam and the Tamil Literary Garden for inviting me to be in conversation with the great Jeyamohan himself today. If Mr. Muthulingam says this was my idea, but he really sort of organized the whole list of speakers and so on. But it was a pleasure to have all of you here. It was a great pleasure to speak to you and to hear you. I think he does fantastically in English. I don't know. No. Keep writing.
No more translation. You write.
So yes, please bring your copies if you want them signed. I'm going to get my copies.